Good afternoon. My name is Carla Goodman. We would like to take this time to welcome all officers, sorors, guests, and family of sorors to our Unity Day celebration. The National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Incorporated, Epsilon Sigma Chapter, is a professional sorority of female educators. We are located in Gastonia, North Carolina. Merriam-Webster defines unity as a condition of harmony or the quality or state of being made one. Today, our chapter thanks you for joining us from across our country and for providing us the opportunity to unify with you as we celebrate Black History Month.
Our Black National Anthem will be performed by Committed virtually. Committed is an a cappella singing group comprised of 5 educated young men who love creativity, music, and God. The group began in 2003 at Forest Lake Academy and solidified their sound while at school at Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. Committed has grown to be a very sought-after a cappella group for many events around the United States and also overseas. Again, please join us for our Black National Anthem. Lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies resound. Rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day. Because march on till victory is won. Stoning the road we trod and turn the chastening rock felt in the days when hope unborn has died, yet with a steady beat and not our weary feet unto the place from which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last. Let us white gleam unborn by star is cast. of the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk of the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand. Our God, true to our God, true to our
At this time, we will be having a special guest performer who will be doing a virtual dance. Her name is Damari Nicole Carrasco. She is a 6th grade student enrolled in the Gifted and Talented program at William F. Halloran School, number 22 in Elizabeth, New Jersey. She has aspirations of becoming a veterinarian. Damari's hobbies include writing, singing, acting, and of course, dancing. She has been dancing since the age of 4 at Harmony Dance Center in Union, New Jersey. Damari is also an active youth member at her church, Trinity Christian Center in Elizabeth, New Jersey. At this time, please welcome Damari Nicole Carrasco. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Damari Carrasco, and I'll be performing to This Is Me by Cuba 7.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I'm learning to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, all beyond love. When the strongest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets in my skin. The fire away. Since today, I won't let this shit sink in. We are rising through the Gonna send a bird, gonna drown a man. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching back to the beat of drum. This is me. The world's gonna help me now. Send it back to the top.
Good afternoon. At this time, we're going to introduce our keynote speaker, Christy Lauren Adams. As a speaker, author, youth advocate, and ordained Baptist minister, Christy is the author of Parable of the Brown Girl, which is published by Fortress Press and was released in February 2020. The book highlights the cultural and spiritual truths that emerge from the lives of young Black girls. Parable of the Brown Girl has received awards for Best Young Adult from the African American Literary Awards and the New York Black Librarians Caucus. She is currently working on her next book, Unbossed: How Black Girls Are Leading the Way, to be released in winter 2020 with Broadleaf Books. She works as the Firestone Endowment Chaplain and as an instructor of religious studies and philosophy at the Hill School in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Christy also works as a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Hill School. Christy is a graduate of Temple University with a degree in advertising and a graduate of Princeton Theological Seminary, where she obtained a Master of Divinity degree. Christy is an alum of the 2017 class of Lead New Jersey, a select group of fellows participating in a year-long program designed to educate, transform, and empower the next generation of leaders from the public, social, and private sectors. She also currently sits on the advisory board for World Made Flesh, a nonprofit organization existing to serve among the most vulnerable of the world's poor. After our next selection, you will hear from our keynote speaker, Christy Lauren Adams. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am honored to be with you all, though virtually, but an honor nonetheless to be here with you for the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Inc.'s Epsilon Sigma Chapter's Heritage Celebration. The theme of bonding and building and belonging is so important for the time that we're in right now, particularly when we can't be together in person, and what that means for us as individuals and as a community. As you know, typically expected over a virtual setting, you might hear like my dog barking or something coming through online with mail or whatever. I've tried to do everything that I could to alleviate a lot of that, but if it does happen, just sort of charge it to technology and not to my heart. But I wanted to bring your attention to a topic that I've been thinking a lot about lately, particularly when it comes to us as women and what it means to celebrate our voices. And so that's what I want to talk about and encourage you all in this afternoon, is this concept of what it means to celebrate our voices, and also what it means to come to voice, to have a voice as a woman. Not long ago, I had the opportunity to attend a wonderful event. Obviously, this was before the pandemic, that my alma mater had for students to practice their speaking in front of an audience outside of the classroom setting. So the speakers, they would receive an evaluation from former graduates or people who had experience speaking publicly. And so I was invited to be an evaluator. There were 5 students who spoke. There were 3 men, there were 2 women. And for me, it was like a nostalgic moment, brought back memories of my first time, whether it was preaching or doing public speaking, and all the nerves and uncertainty that came with that experience. And so all 5 speakers, they had their own unique styles. And, I enjoyed the experience. My colleagues enjoyed hearing and watching each of them deliver this 10-minute talk. But as a woman, I was particularly interested in the 2 women speakers. And one of the things that I noticed was a difference in how the men delivered versus how the women delivered. And so there was a level of nervousness for all of them. There was something that I noticed about the men. They had an ease to how they delivered that the women did not have. And it was a familiar sight for me that I not only dealt with, as a younger woman trying to, get ahead and have my voice heard in sort of a male-dominated world, right, society. But it's something that I continue to see enacted today in other spaces. So my words to the women and all of the women in the room, they came with a sense of urgency. And I just remember saying to them, this is your platform just as much as it is any man's platform. And I told them that, your voice matters in these spaces just as much as it would for any man's voice. So it's that voice that I was looking for to come out of those women. The man, Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he once defined the voice as the overlapping of the 4 parts of our nature. So it was more than just the sound for him that comes out of our mouths. It was the 4 parts: our body, our mind, our heart, and our spirit. So when you think of voice, or when I think of voice, I think of it very similarly when someone says your heart. There's our actual physical heart on the inside of us, but then there's our heart that is also sort of defining of our character. I think it's the same thing with our voice. Our voice is who we are. And as women, sometimes we feel like we need to hide our voice, not just in public speaking, but in everyday spaces. One of the things I wanted to do and get across with the young women at my alma mater who were speaking is that this is your platform here, and your platform in workspaces, your platform is in your home. Your voice matters and counts in all of those spaces. I have a friend who she works in sales, and she's possibly one of only a handful of Black women who work at her company. And, she's working in this position, and she's very careful about how she interacts with her colleagues and the people that she sells to. And so what she does is she code switches. Some of you might be familiar with code switching, when you use like a particular type of sounding voice, right, to speak to your colleagues and to your supervisors differently than you would with your girls or your family, your friends. And so my friend and I, we have these conversations about how she's going to wear her hair because she feels like she can't wear certain types of braids or other styles, that would come off too ethnic, whatever that means. And so that, those conversations with her really caused me to reflect on my own life, right? And ask myself, what areas of my life have caused me to feel like I've had to put pieces of myself aside in order to fit in? And so I ask you all the same question: if there are any areas, or what areas of your lives have caused you to feel like, you've had to put pieces of yourself aside? So if our voices are essentially all that we are, like Stephen Covey said, right? Our heart, our spirit, our mind, our body, then what we forfeit when we forfeit our voices are those things, are ourselves. We forfeit our voices, we forfeit our mind, our spirit, our heart, our body. So the question is, how much of your voice are you giving up in order to stay in unhealthy situations or in order to compromise, whether it's in a workspace or a family or relationship or whatever it might be, even in your own calling in this world? We are taught as women that we must compromise. We are taught that we must assimilate in order to engage. And ultimately, it forces us to lose ourselves. So the question is, how do we find our voice and our identity when we have to deny who we are in order to get ahead? For me, I count it a blessing. I grew up in a church environment that affirmed women's leadership voices in the pulpit and outside of the pulpit. And so that shielded me from some of the patriarchal realities that many women have had to fight against in their vocational calling. But at the same time, the overarching dominant culture in society and in the church, is one that gives the authoritative voice to men. And so I still had to fight my way for opportunities to speak or for my voice to be heard, while also at the same time fighting internal battles of insecurity, right? Which is what I think was happening with those young women that I spoke to at my alma mater, that spoke. They were not only dealing with the outside forces, but also the internal voices that say that their voice isn't good enough. So I personally had to find my authoritative voice in both large platforms, public platforms, and internally. There was one instance, I was working as a campus pastor at Azusa Pacific University in California. I moved to California for a few years a while ago. And after a staff meeting, my supervisor, he pulled me to the side and he noticed that the entire team meeting, I didn't have anything to say. He simply said to me, I hired you to speak. I remember those words that he came to me. I told him, I was just observing, that I didn't really feel like I had anything to offer. But he said, but that's not why I hired you to observe. I hired you to speak. I didn't even realize what I was doing. In my mind, I didn't have anything important to add to the conversation. In my mind, my opinions didn't matter. But I realized in that moment that in order to be a better professional, right, a better colleague, then I needed to come to terms with my voice, internally and externally. I hired you to speak. So I think back to that phrase, that was years ago, but I often think back to him saying to me, I hired you to speak. I was so afraid to use my voice because I didn't think that what I had to say mattered. And that wasn't the case. For me, I believe that God gave us our voices for a reason. None of us are happenstance. All of us were created with intention. Our character, our personality, our aesthetic, the way we physically look. If God gave it to us, if we were created with these, then we're supposed to use it. They are instruments that have to be used, and they're a light for all to see. So we're not supposed to stay silent. You are not supposed to stay silent. You are called to speak. Now, whether that is speaking in a public or a large platform, or one in your own community, or one in your own realm of and sphere of influence, you're still called to speak. You're still called to open your mouth and to use your voice. Our voices, they represent all of who we are. And when we discover those voices, that's where our light and our calling comes in. Everyone has a different voice and a different sense of what gives us meaning and purpose in our life and in the world. But how can we find our voices in spaces that don't allow for us to have one? How can one find their voice when opposition and negativity around them stifle what little voices that we feel like we think that we have? But that still gives us the mandate, that still allows us the room to be able to explore. Our voice counts. Your voice counts. Your voice means something. It represents all of who you are. All of those areas, those 4 areas that Stephen Covey mentioned, and more, right? All of who God has called you to be. And to lose, that uniqueness that you bring to this world, to hide that potential that should be developed in you, it's a tragedy. I recently did an interview for a website. It was called Empowered Women Preach. And they asked me how we can do a better job at empowering young women to speak confidently and to go out and be bold with their calling. And, I responded that, we have to do a better job of affirming young women in their everyday voices before we can even empower them to go out to large platforms. I counsel a lot of girls who don't believe that what they have to say is important, or girls who don't believe that their opinions and thoughts are important enough to speak. I spend so much time showing them how to practice using their voice, their everyday voice, in their homes, in their school, among their peers, right? By being confident enough, if somebody offers you something that you don't want, saying no thank you, right? Being confident enough to not have to say yes to everything all the time for fear that you're going to lose friends or somebody's not going to like you. Practice saying no thank you, right? Practice using your voice or giving your opinion, saying what it is that you think, what it is that you feel, putting words to your emotion. Because I truly believe that only when they know that what they have to say is important in these everyday mundane areas of life, can we even begin to have conversations with them, empowering them to speak in more public settings. So that's what I feel like my journey has led me to, empowering women and girls to be leaders by helping them come to voice. I read a book, a counseling women book, and there was a chapter on helping women come to voice. That's sort of where I got it from, that it inspired me. And when she writes, she talks about the term voice, and she says something along the lines of, I'm not talking about a willingness to speak when I'm talking about coming to voice. I'm talking about the ability to find language and a model that validates one's own experience, and that those experiences are authentic and important, right? So the ability to find language and a model that validates my own experience, that's what it means to come to voice. That's what it means for me, and that's what it means for all of us as women. So I believe now is not the time for us to hide the voice that's been given to us. So my encouragement to you all this afternoon is don't hide your voice, and to find it and use it to reshape the world around you.
The National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa, Incorporated, Epsilon Sigma Chapter, takes pride in being able to build partnerships within our local community. We reached out to Mrs. Dorothy Guthrie the end of last year with the hopes of being able to partner with her. And we were humbled by her acceptance and providing an opportunity for us to begin to establish a relationship with her. Mr. Bobby Guthrie and Mrs. Dorothy Guthrie are the co-founders and curators of the African American Museum of History and Culture at Luray Mill in Gastonia, North Carolina, where Epsilon Sigma chapter is located. Their mission is to provide visitors with the opportunity to explore, examine, engage, and encourage all to seek a better understanding and deeper appreciation for the contributions made and achievements obtained at the regional, national, and local levels. It is an honor to welcome Mrs. Dorothy Guthrie and Mr. Bobby Guthrie at this time for their presentation of their museum, the African American Museum of History and Culture at Luray Mill.
Welcome to the African American Museum of History and Culture at Luray Mill. The gallery is full of wonderful facts, artifacts, and hands-on learning. The museum is divided into 7 zones. Zone 1 reflects the history and culture of Gastonia, from some of the early days to present. There you will see Dr. Herbert Irwin Sr., Gaston County's first African-American doctor, and Gaston County's 3 African-American mayors, T. Jeffries, Glendale Brooks, and the current mayor, Walker Reed. Freestanding panels are positioned throughout the museum, featuring Native artists. The first panel is dedicated to Mr. Jim Biggers, a renowned artist that advocated for an art center in Gaston County. Municipalities are represented, displaying George Jaggers, Stacy Malker Thomas, and some of the early schools, such as Lincoln Academy. When children begin their journey throughout Zone 3, they are shown how to persevere, moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Using digital technology, QR codes and iPads are available. The Little Corner Bookshop located in the museum features books written by and about the Black experience for all age groups. Special emphasis is placed on African American Book Awards for children and adults. The African American Museum of History and Culture at Luray Mill will have a lasting impact for our Gaston County residents. It will give every age the opportunity to learn and celebrate culture. To find out more about hours of operation or about the museum itself, visit blackhistorymuseumgastonia.org.
At this time, we would like to present our 2021 Spring Crenon line. LaQuandra Limas, Lisa Landrum May, and Sakina McDuffie.
Praise Song for the Day by Elizabeth Alexander. Each day we go about our business, walking past each other, catching each other's eyes or not, about to speak or speaking. All about us is noise. All about us is noise and bramble, thorn and thin, each one of our ancestors on our tongue. Someone is stitching up a hem, darning a hole in a uniform, patching a tire, repairing the things in need of repair. Someone is trying to make music somewhere, with a pair of wooden spoons on an oil drum, with a cello, boombox, harmonica, voice. A woman and her son wait for the bus. A farmer considers the changing sky. A teacher says, take out your pencils. Begin.
We encounter each other in words, words spiny or smooth, whispered or disclaimed, words to consider, reconsider. We cross dirt roads and highways that mark the will of someone and then others who said, I need to see what's on the other side. I know there's something better down the road. We need to find a place where we are safe. We walk into that which we cannot see. Say it plain that many have died to this day. Sing the name of the dead who brought us here, who laid the train tracks, raised the bridges, picked the cotton and the lettuce, built brick by brick the glittering edifices that would keep them clean and work inside of.
Praise song for struggle. Praise song for the day. Praise song for every hand-lettered sign. The figuring it out at the kitchen table. Some live by love thy neighbor as thyself. Others by first do no harm or take no more than you need. What if the mightiest word is love? Love beyond marital, filial, national. Love that casts a widening pool of light. Love with no need to preempt grievance. In today's sharp sparkle, this winter air, anything can be made, any sentence begun, on the brink, on the brim, on the cusp. Praise song for walking forward in that light.
At this time, we would like to introduce one of the members of our chapter, Jahara Davis, for a special performance.
And, as Pastor Adams stated, as Ms. Guthrie was so passionate about of stating, we're in a time where we want to belong and we want to bond and we have to be together. But in order for that to happen, this song still resonates because a change has to come. A change has to come in more ways than now than ever, from the things that took place last summer with George Floyd, to the pandemic, to women's rights, and to all rights. And so I hope you guys enjoy my version of A Change Is Gonna Come by Mr. Sam Cooke. I was born by the river in a little tent, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too living, and I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. They say don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, I go, I try to go to my brother. And I said, brother, help me, please. But he winds up on knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there's been times that I thought I could last for long, but I know, thank God, that I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes, it will. Thank you.
Thank you, Jahara Davis. Thank you, thank you. We are humbled by your support and are very grateful that you've chosen to join Epsilon Sigma in our Unity celebration. We would like to thank and acknowledge all members of NSPDK for supporting Epsilon Sigma, as well as a special thanks to Dr. Patsy Squire, the Eastern Regional Director of the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa, for being in attendance as well. A very special thanks to Dr. Tara Dowdell and Mrs. Sharina Houston for coordinating such an amazing event. Today's message was so profound. I would like to remind you that your voice matters, and there are many young women who are dependent on our voices. Always remember that you are important enough to speak, and in the words of Dr. Squire, always let your voice be heard with a smile and firmness. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Thank you.